This podcast is brought to you by Amber Sherwood. I've heard it said that it's the wrinkliness of a person's brain that determines their intelligence more than the brain's actual size. If that's the case, Amber's noggin nugget must be wrinklier than the Queen of England dressed up in a raisin costume. Amber's full of fascinating and fun facts, especially when it comes to neuroscience, but she's also well versed in proper dog care and furniture crafting, and she's even quicker than a Google search if you need to know anything about any Legend of Zelda game ever. I've seen her blast through the Ocarina of Time with a skill and speed that'd leave Shigeru Miyamoto gaping. Amber's more than just brains, though. Her honest gentleness and humility make Buddha look like a stage-hogging pro wrestler, and her sense of humor is always good for a snappy pun. And even if they make you cringe, you'll be powerless to suppress a smile. More importantly than anything, though, and I can attest to this myself, Amber can be the big sister you've never had, the one who you didn't know you needed, and could never imagine how much you'd end up loving until she came into your life and changed everything. Amber Sherwood. Big heart, big smile, and one gosh darned wrinkly noggin nugget.
Thank you, lawnmowers. You're making my editing job very interesting.
And you keep snakes out of our yard.
By chopping them up. Welcome to Little, Middle, and Biggle. I'm your middle brother, Joshua.
I'm your little brother, Andrew.
And I'm your biggle brother, Noah.
And we are the ones who will try our best to answer the little, middle, and biggle questions we all have in life. Starting with me. I get the little question today. The best question, if you ask me. So, Noah, last time you said that you were going to get kind of divisive with your question about pulp or no pulp.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I'm going to get even more controversial. Mario or Legend of Zelda? Which is the better franchise? So I'll start off. Mario, by far, 100%. Because Legend of Zelda, it is one flavor of game. It is, hey, here's a slightly adventure-y, mostly puzzle game that really, to me, just feels like... You guys remember those old toys where it was like a hollow cube and you had to fit the little blocks through the correct shape? Like there would be a star-shaped block, and like a circle-shaped block, and a triangle-shaped block. It kind of feels to me like that, where it's like, look, here is this fake challenge for you. Let me put this in front of you, little monkey brain, for you to puzzle out. But with Mario games, there is not just like the side-scrolly basic entertainment. There's also like adventure for Paper Mario, and then RPG like with Super Mario. Oh no, wait, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. That's what it's called. And Mario Kart Racing and Mario Party. So I would be totally fine living in a world without Legend of Zelda. Not totally fine living in a world without Mario.
I feel like you have more to share on this, Noah, so go ahead.
I have to actually think through this a little bit, so I'll just think out loud. So Mario, definitely more variety in the types of games that there have been. Also, as far as forming a recognizable character for a franchise goes, Mario obviously wins. Very much so. I feel like Legend of Zelda, people are like, oh yeah, I think I recognize that. But if you showed them a picture of Link or something, they would maybe recognize it, maybe not.
Is that Legolas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Mario, everyone recognizes Mario. Even people that don't play any video games will be like, oh, that's Mario. But on the flip side, Legend of Zelda, the first Legend of Zelda game was very groundbreaking for the industry because it let you save your progress. It was like an adventure game that wasn't just you start, you play a little bit, you stop, you leave the arcade, or you turn off the console or whatever. It was you could actually build a story into it, and it. I would say that as far as so that, and then also the Ocarina of Time had a huge impact because it was a 3D game, but it made this 3D world that you could explore. It wasn't just set up like an arcade with levels. It was a whole world that was just open. You could explore. It was a whole new concept. And then with Breath of the Wild, they did that again, but in a whole different kind of way. not that the open world concept hadn't been done by then, but it was like it took a new spin on it. It was a little bit less groundbreaking, but it was definitely groundbreaking for the franchise. But then if you think about Legend of Zelda games as far as like the effects they've had on the industry versus like Mario games have like made it more recognizable, made things like very accessible, but Legend of Zelda games have brought a lot more like art and like story building and meaning to video games. Even if they're not the top-notch level of it, they're the ones to like be groundbreaking in a lot of ways. So I would say I'm gonna push for Legend of Zelda, but that's hard. I'm mostly just at that point. I'm pretty much just being like the other voice of this debate.
So I have a lot less to say since I was not born in the era where those games were as relevant. I mean, they're still very relevant now, but you know, when people say, "Hey, do you want to go play video games?" It's not Mario and Legend of Zelda. I think I have probably played Mario games way more than Legend of Zelda games, but Legend of Zelda just kind of has a special place in my heart as like the game I watched my brothers play growing up. Like I feel like that's how I got to know Amber a lot better, was sitting playing Majora's Mask with you guys. And I would much rather play a game that is quietly groundbreaking and really cool and progressive than the massive, everybody knows, quantity over quality franchise of Mario.
Okay, but see, the franchise of Mario, yeah, that's totally pop culture. Everyone knows it. But the individual games, like, if you talk to someone who plays Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door and loves it, you are talking to one of, like, 0.01% of the world's population. Mm-hmm. And you can... I have, like, experienced this firsthand. You instantly bond with that person because you're like, oh my gosh, you love that weird, like, off-brand Mario, but not off-brand because it was actually in the Mario brand, but like that weird sort of side path that it took. Me too. I also loved that it was like kind of creepy and funky and had a bunch of backstory.
Well, it's hard not to bond with someone who plays Legend of Zelda. Like, I barely played Legend of Zelda, and if I run into someone and I'm like, you played Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask? One of those older but still newish ones. It's like, wow, this person is of high standards, you know?
I really don't know. I don't feel that same way, honestly.
Well, I guess one thing for Joshua's sake, like, argument there is there are a lot more Mario games, and there are some really, like, random, weird ones.
Yeah.
So there is more space for there to be, like, niche Mario game. There aren't a whole lot of niche Legend of Zelda games, like, or at least the level of like well-knownness to nicheness is not, there's not quite as big of a divide.
Yeah, that's kind of something I've never loved about the Mario games, and that makes them hard to get into for me, is like they're not unique from each other. I mean, sure, the gameplay is unique, but it's just the same characters. It's like it doesn't make sense in my brain for the same character to be doing all these things, which I see Joshua has an angry counterpoint.
Okay, how can you say that the Mario games are too similar to each other and not think that the Legend of Zelda games are not so similar to each other?
Well, no. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. But the Legend of Zelda games, he's like on one continuous track, you know?
No, there are 3 separate timelines.
Maybe I don't know as much about this.
No. Well, have you ever even completed a Legend of Zelda game?
No.
Your opinion isn't valid. Moving on. You can keep going.
No, I don't want to.
Okay. So I have to agree though that Mario definitely does have a lot of more notoriety. People go around saying it's a me, but nobody goes around going like, you know, like Legend of Zelda. And that does bring to it a bit of, like, fakeness. Like, you know, all the people who wear and have, like, never actually listened to more than Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. Mm-hmm. There's kind of that same thing with the Mario games. Like, people will wear, like, the Mario logo or, like, the seen the opening scene from Super Mario Brothers 2, and they've never actually even played that. So, but I don't feel like that happens quite as much with Legend of Zelda. Like, if I see someone walking around with a Hylian crest on their shirt, I'm like, yeah, I trust that you played that.
Yeah. Okay, I should rephrase my commentary to, I don't like how commercialized Mario has become. He's very commercialized.
Gen Z hipster.
Hey, shut up.
It's okay.
I wear that mark with pride.
Okay, as you should. Okay. Anyone have any final thoughts on this topic? I feel like this has divided us more than any other question.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
A better question would be like Skyrim versus Oblivion.
Are you trying to say my question isn't good enough?
No, yours is excellent for you and Noah. Just trying to think of one we could all equally comment on.
Well, I mean, you've also never played Oblivion.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What is something that we have all played? That'd be a good
Ratchet and
side
Clank.
quest.
Ratchet and Clank, yeah, that is true.
Yeah, we have totally all played Ratchet and Clank. What's another one we've all played?
I mean, Warhawk, but it's with varying degrees of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Rock Band.
Ooh, yeah.
Andrew, have you ever played Guitar Hero?
I've played Guitar Hero like 10 minutes here and there. Never full on experienced it.
Gotcha.
Man, that would be Rock Band, Guitar Hero. Although Andrew's also never played lots of Guitar Hero.
Yeah. The next person who has little and wants to do a video game related question can be like, what's the best instrument on Rock Band or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
That would be a little biased by the fact that I cannot maintain coordination on drums.
Yeah, okay. And I don't think Noah really can either.
On what?
No offense, Noah. Can you drum on Rock Band?
I mean, I can, technically.
Still better than
I am capable of hitting the circles.
That's all that counts.
Yeah.
You say still better than Dad, but when I watch Dad, I'm like, wow, that's what I look like when I play the drums, because I know I do the exact same thing as him.
Ah, good times.
That's
There needs to
okay.
be another rock band in the world.
Yeah,
Hey,
seriously,
it really does.
what
hey,
happened to that?
Our 5 listeners, if any of you have clout, with what even?
Not psionics.
It's like Digisoft.
Oh, heck, I don't even remember.
I don't know. If any of you have clout with the rock band people, get that in the works. Okay, we should move on. Middle question, Noah. Do you want to go for it?
Sure, this one will be somehow it will be much less divisive than video game franchises. But what do you think is more important, mental health or physical health? And I would say that I feel like this is my answer to most things to an extent. It kind of depends. But I would say overall, mental health is more important than physical health, because if you have good mental health, you are likely to do more good things. You're likely to enjoy life more. And if you have good physical health, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be a good person. And it also doesn't mean that you are going to be able to even enjoy that good physical health.
Yeah.
So, if you have to choose between one or the other, I think mental health is more important. In, the vast majority of cases. I'm sure there are exceptions, but this is just something I was thinking about earlier today.
At first, I was like, you can't even choose between those. I mean, they're kind of interlinked, but now that you say that,
they totally are. Just if you have to choose between one and the other.
yeah, mental health would totally be the way to go. And I feel like having really good mental health leads to greater physical health.
Yeah,
And
and
I
vice
know-
versa, for that
Yeah,
matter.
exactly. But to some extent, I feel like mental health leads more to physical health than physical health leads to mental health. For me. But, different for everyone.
Mm.
Okay, so I have 2 answers for this. One is the answer that I would give if I could say, or if I could believe, that I could have one without the other in any
Yeah.
measure.
Yeah.
And-
This is like a thought experiment.
Yeah, and in that case, I would say mental health, yeah, because then I could still be doing things like writing books, making podcasts, putting things into the world, but I know that the realistic answer and just the way my head works, at least currently, and has for the past 20 some years, is that if I do not have my physical health, mental health is not even an option. It's not like my happiness is diminished. It's like my happiness is non-existent. And physical health is a prerequisite for my mental health. Physical health insofar as like being able to exercise really is what it comes to. That is totally what it is. Being able to exercise and do things that exhaust me physically in addition to exhausting me mentally. If I don't have that, there is nothing.
So has it always been that, or was it at one point like doing the motivation was like being able to do what other people are doing? Like for me in elementary and middle school, whenever I couldn't run the mile as fast as my friends, or like at Heifer International when we had the scavenger hunt, I was on a team with Barrett and Michael, and I was really dragging behind them to the point where I was just like, okay, I'm gonna walk, I'll catch up with you guys later. And that's definitely a huge motivator for me with physical health, is keeping up with people. Not necessarily just running, but like conforming to a standard, you know?
I can see that.
Is that what it's like for you?
No, really, it just, when I get to the end of the day and I have physical energy left, regardless of if my mental energy is just like kaput or not, I just feel miserable. Like I need to have been physically exhausted for me to feel like my day was worth it, which is very strange for me. I do not know why, because like I can have a super, super productive day of like, I knocked out all of the studying, I aced those exams, I edited the podcast where Andrew burped like 4 times, and I will still, if I did not work out, or at least like go for a long walk that day, I will feel just disgusting. Just like mental grunge, if that makes any sense.
I feel like maybe I'd feel that to a bit of a lesser extent, but yeah, like after just sitting around all day, even if you're being productive, it feels really good to have some sort of physical, exercise, like get moving, which is good for you to do anyways, like within, a certain extent.
I think what it might come down to is that I'm an endorphin addict. Like, some people, we've talked about caffeine. So, like, people get on the routine where they, like, have a Coke every day. And then they do that for, like, 6 years. And then the thought of not having that Coke that day, like, that day will then just become a wash. Just, like, they will not be worth anything. Even if they get stuff done, at the end of the day, they'll just be like, I feel miserable. And because I have worked out, like, daily for years now, and, like, wasn't even taking rest days until the beginning of 2020, and even now only take them, like, once a week or once every 2 weeks, that the thought of not having that boost of endorphins is really rough for me. I remember even when I started cross country back freshman year of high school, even though the people on cross country were just like jerks and bullied me relentlessly, and I hated the cross country like experience, just the fact that I was running made such a difference that after I stopped cross country, after cross country season was over, I decreased in overall mental health. Like I distinctly remember Mom saying, you seem to be a lot happier when you're running around every day. And truth be told, like I was a little bit, even though not being on cross country meant that I didn't have to deal with those dingus wads anymore. Like I still was happier just because of the physical activity. So physical health is, for me, to get back to the question, now that I've circled past Albuquerque and Toronto, is, in the realistic world in which I live, physical health, number one, because without it, mental health would be impossible.
Interesting. What I was going to ask a couple minutes ago was, do you not think, and I didn't say this because I think you have poor mental health, but, it does run in the blonde-headed bags
it does.
group. I wondered if maybe you had ever thought, if I had better mental health, would it be easier for me not to work out, to take rest days? Which, after what you said about cross country, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I've honestly, a lot of times I have thought, if I had better mental health, I could work out better. Like, there are definitely times when, oh gosh, and I hate it when this happens, but I'll be like in the middle of a set of deadlifts, and I'll be like rep 4 out of 8, and I'll pause at the bottom for a breath, and then my mind will just like snap, it's gone, and my focus is lost, and I'm just thinking like, how many calories should I have in my breakfast meal? And what should that breakfast meal compose of? How am I going to plan my day today? And then it's just like this obsessive thought mudslide would probably be the best word for it. And then the next 4 deadlifts are not pretty, because like in between every rep, I'm like, okay, focus, focus, focus. And then if you have to tell yourself to focus, you already know.
It doesn't really work.
Yeah. Focus ain't going to be there. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Any other thoughts anyone has to add to that?
No, that was a cool little random deep dive.
That was. Yeah. Okay. Andrew, will you finish us off with the big question?
Yes.
Finish them.
Finish him. I'm going to ask you guys this and possibly rephrase it based on your answers. How old were you guys when Great Grandma Agnes died? Like, do you remember her death?
Oh, I totally do.
What I remember of that is Mom just sobbing on Dad's shoulder in the kitchen of the old house, and Dad being really composed, but also just kind of muted, I think would be the best word for it for that time. And I remember them coming and talking to us on the red couch. And
oh yeah, the red couch. Yep.
Yeah, the red couch. In the living room and telling us, and what I asked was, what's going to happen to the farm? Because sometime in the recent past, maybe that previous summer or the year before then, we had gone to visit her at the farm, and I really liked the farm. And I think that kind of speaks to just the lack of understanding of the depth of what had just happened that I had, is that my first instinct was, what happens to this temporary physical place, instead of, wow, I need a moment to deal with this permanent, no longer here person, Yeah. Sorry, I jumped in on that. That should have been you. Okay. You should have answered that first because you asked it, so go for it.
Well, the question really wasn't going to be that answerable by me, because my original question was just going to be, how are you guys impacted by death? And I've only had very minor, contact with people dying. Like, in my sophomore year, one of my friend's moms died. Like, okay, what I should say is I can only see the impacts of death on other people, not on myself. So I wanted to ask you guys what it was like.
Yeah. So for me, for Great Grandma Agnes, the most impactful part, I think, was not the moment of, but it was the leading up to. Like the few weeks beforehand, when she was in hospice care, or maybe it wasn't hospice, but like ICU or something, where it was very clear that she was going to die soon. I remember overhearing conversations that Mom would have with people saying like, oh yeah, she said last night that when she fell asleep, she had dreams of angels there. And that, I think, and maybe this is me ascribing sort of depth of emotion that was not even possible for me at that age, but I think that made death and the idea of life after death, or, what happens after death, a lot more of a reality instead of a story to me, although it still was definitely pretty removed. So that's, I would say, probably the way that her death affected me most. As far as death in general, I will get to that after Noah gives his answer about Great Grandma Agnes.
I had forgotten about the dreams thing that Mom was talking about.
Do you remember that too, though?
Yeah, I totally do.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I completely forgotten about that. Like, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember visiting her in the hospital. I don't think it was the ICU. I think it was it was just like a regular hospital
geriatric care.
bed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, or like a med-surg floor or something. But I really don't know, because I didn't know a thing about hospitals at that point. I remember like the day that she died too, like us all sitting together and like being kind of bummed out about it. I remember you asking about the farm and me being like, oh yeah, the farm. Because that was like such a weird, cool part of our memories. And also didn't realize until like a lot later how like much Dad and Mom like hung out with Great Grandma Agnes and like how many cool memories they had with her. Like we're very lucky to have awesome grandparents, but like most people don't know their grandparents that well. Mm-hmm. Or like especially their spouse's grandparents. But like Mom and Dad spent a lot of time with Great Grandma Agnes.
I also feel like that's just something that's become less common in our generation. Like Mom and Dad's generation seems like kind of the last one to do that.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like a lot of my friends' parents didn't necessarily know their grandparents that well. But yeah, I guess like a lot of my friends especially don't know their grandparents that well. Yeah, that might be true. I don't know. I do remember her 90th birthday party was, I think, at the farm. And there was a cake with like 90 candles on it. And someone's like she's just like, just walking by and someone's like, we got to figure out what to do for the 100th birthday party now. And she was kind of like, huh, and gave him this look like, yeah, right.
What I remember from that birthday party is me being like toddler-ish age is...
Oh yeah, you were tiny at that age.
Yeah, but I do have a memory of wanting to give her present, which I think I had painted a coaster for her, but that may just be totally fake, and me filling in gaps in my memory. But so I wanted to give her this gift, whatever it was, and she was sitting in her rocking chair on her front porch, like with old lady friends around her, and Mom was like, "Go give her the gift. She'll love getting it from you." And
Mom said that?
Yeah.
That was your mom impression?
It was a bad mom impression. I'm sorry. So I was like, I am a shy toddler. And so I shuffled up there and like just about pooped my pants as I handed this like nicest old lady in the world her birthday present, and shuffled away and buried my face in Mom's skirt because I was so embarrassed. That is my one distinct memory of being around Great Grandma Agnes.
No
but
way.
I do remember that she smiled.
Yeah, she was a very happy lady.
She seems like, this is growing off topic, but from all the stories I've heard from her, it's like she is the ideal of someone who realizes what is important in life and being happy. Yeah, okay, anyways.
Okay, yeah, so I got the impression, Andrew, that your question was more, how has death affected your perspective on life? Is that me reading too much into it?
Perspective on life is fine. Mine was just like immediate effects.
Immediate effects of death.
My thought, yeah.
Okay. So for me, I think the times that death has really affected me the most are when Sarah's dad died and when my high school friend / choir mate / theater mate died. Sarah's dad was weird because I could see the progression of getting cancer, having the cancer worsen, and then finally have him die. And it was hard because I felt like throughout the whole time I had really like realized the depth of what was happening, and I could say to myself, like, you know, he might not be around a year from now. But then when he finally died, I realized that every single memory that I had of him, every single interaction I had, was now a finite list. And that would only decay with time as I grew more distant and forgot more things, even though I was never close to him. Like, I interacted with him probably a dozen times maximum. So that was an interesting and odd and sad experience. But I think what impacted me a lot more was when this guy Jason, who I was in high school with and was in, like I mentioned, theater and show choir and choir, but not just like kind of tangentially knowing him, you know, like you do in high school. Like, he and I were the co-princes in Into the Woods, and he stood right next to me in the 16-person show choir, and like rode around in my car on the way to our gigs and stuff. So I felt like I was relatively close to him. And it was super weird to get the call one day from another one of those choir members saying, "Hey, Jason died." And that made me very appreciative of my own life, because him being a year younger than me meant that I had already outlived him, like, time-wise. And also made me really appreciative of you guys, because I also knew his older brother. And so me thinking of his older brother having to go to bed that night, thinking, wow, my little brother is in a morgue right now. And I think that is why I am now maybe a little bit of a scaredy pants butt clencher when it comes to Andrew risk taking on his bike or in his Jeep or what have you. No, I feel like you're less of a risk taker, though I must admit, when you and I went outdoor rock climbing, there was some butt clenching.
Well, that's fair, but that's also like dressing the gear and stuff too. But yeah, that's butt clenching is normal in that case.
Yeah. Noah, do you want to go any more in depth on your answer?
I mean, I think it affects me differently now after just having worked in the ER for a little while, because like it's not this surprise, like, weird concept. Like, I remember early on, like, it was almost over a year of working there before I like actually was in the room whenever a patient died. And I remember, like, the first time I was like I'm probably gonna like remember each one of these, and like I totally don't. Like, there were like I have no idea like how many there were. Like, I could probably, like, if someone mentioned one, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that, and like we did this and that and whatever. But like, I don't have like, oh yeah, so far there have been 9 or something. Like, it's just become, for better or for worse, like more of a, like, something that I'm accustomed to, and then you kind of like think about it on a grander scale, like it's happening all the time. Like, people are always being born and dying, and it just kind of feels, it's almost a little bit relieving. Think of it not as like this shocking thing, but just like people, there's always somebody getting a job, someone new that gets a job. Cool, that's awesome. Someone's always getting sick. Whenever someone gets sick, it's not the end of the world. It's just something that happens, and you do what you can about it. People die all the time, and it's like, it's kind of weird to just be like, oh yeah, that's just a normal part of life. But it totally is. Like, that's like the moment that you're born, pretty much like one of the only things you're guaranteed is that like you're gonna die at some point.
And you'll pay taxes, as Mr. Klein says.
Yeah.
And Benjamin Franklin 300 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some
But-
guy like 20 years before him. But anyway, go on, Noah.
Just, I don't know. I think it's something that, for me personally, like, it doesn't, like, I like the thing you're saying about, like, all the memories you have are not, like, a finite list of that person, which is definitely a sad part of all of that. But, at the same time, for me, it feels like, especially if they had, like, a good existence, that it is not as, like, it doesn't feel like a shock of heartbreak to me. Like, just thinking about that, which is not. I feel like that's a feeling that I started to have, and I was like, I can either like accept this, or I can like really fight against it and be like, no, like it's a horrible thing. But I think for me, at least, it's been better just to accept it, because it makes. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. You know, being a healthcare provider, you're just like postponing the inevitable, anyways, which is what we're both going to do. And Andrew, maybe. I mean, who knows what Andrew's going to do? But,
yeah, who
but,
knows?
Like, yeah. I don't know. I think it's maybe good to just to let it not ruin your life. Like ruin your day too much, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't think about that person and care about them, but it's much better to be like, man, like think of like Great Grandma Agnes, like, at the time, like that was a very new concept to both of us. We'd not really had anybody die in our family, but to think about like, man, remember like all the silly things that person did, or like, fun memories and stuff. And, if there's something they would have cared about, like maybe take care of that for them. And not just be like, this is the worst thing ever. This person is gone. How did this happen? It's more like taking back any like emotional side of it, even just like looking at it objectively. It's much more productive, both as far as like everyone's mental health and happiness, and just in general, to have like a good, positive outlook.
Yeah. To bind the book of their memories so that it can then be read and enjoyed.
Yeah, exactly.
That was very eloquent.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Shockingly, I could ramble for 5 minutes and Joshua can say all of what I was saying in one like sentence and make it sound perfect and eloquent.
Yeah.
I don't know. I condensed it pretty heavily, but
still,
left some of the nuance. Anyway, yeah, I like what you had to say.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to hear your perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear yours too. Also, brief side note: do you remember Great Grandma Agnes's funeral?
Yes. What I remember is two things. I remember one being like, oh my dear Lord, why is this priest using this freaking gross incense that smells like burnt bacon?
Oh, yeah. It was kind of gross.
It was really, really gross. And also, I remember our like second cousin, whose name I don't even remember, at the reception afterward, he had taken off his dress socks and he was spinning them around through the air like helicopter propellers and saying, "Make the air smell good." That's what I remember.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember. I had forgotten about the incense, but that was really nasty. I don't know. Just like I just remember it being like this. It was like, oh, this is my first experience with this. Like, what is it going to be like? And there was like a lot more. There were a lot more laughter. There was a lot more laughter and smiles than I would have expected during the ceremony itself. Like yeah. I feel like everyone that went up like said something that like everyone laughed about. Mm-hmm. Like even like the priest went up. He's like, all right, like we've had some fun, but like it's time to talk about what we really care about, and like what we're really gonna miss. And like everyone, like the silence kind of fell over everyone. And he goes, I'm really gonna miss those chocolate chip cookies. Those things were freaking great.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, it was worded a little bit better. It was, I don't know, it was funny. But then like at the reception afterwards, everyone was just like having a great time. So I don't know. It was a good experience. I don't know if we like can throw it into Andrew's question a whole lot, but I was just curious since we've been talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've shared the breadth and depth of all of my memories of that. Like I was 4 or 5, so
yeah, I forget that you were so tiny at that point.
Yeah,
and I was fresh out the womb.
Yep. Andrew is a little babby.
Beautiful. Well, in that case, I think that it is time that we roll the credits, y'all. This podcast is created by the three of us, written by none of us, and edited and produced by me, Joshua, who also apparently stutters now. Hopefully it's also listened to and enjoyed by you, but no pressure, hey? So join us next time as we unravel more of the world's big questions, or maybe just get tangled up in them. We'll see how things go when we get there. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or ideas on how we could make this podcast better, send us a message at littlemiddlebiggle@outlook.com. That's Biggle with 2 G's. Love, thanks, and T-Rex hugs from all of us. We couldn't have done this without you. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Ding.
Nice.
Thanks.